I'm very ready for season two. I see a bunch of creators in here, depending on which one of the videos you watch, Stylosa or ML7 or somebody. Either Ramatra is the most busted character of all time, or he needs a massive buff on day one. So I'm excited to actually get in the game, see him for myself a little bit.
I think in the first few days, we'll see how Maracha performs. Uh, Definitely some different takes right now, but I'm excited to see what the reality is
Look,
pretty
they
shortly.
need views. I get it. I get it. I'm all for the content. Um, I think before we talk about season two's balance change, we haven't had a chance to kind of put a bow on season one. How did that
Mhm.
mid-season or mid-cycle balance patch go for you guys?
Yeah, I think, going into season one, at the very beginning, the narrative, surrounded Zarya and Genji and Diva and Sombra. And they all received changes in the mid-season patch there. So I think if you look at them individually, I think the two that ended up in an okay spot was Genji and Diva. They ended up right around 50% hovering on most ranks, and then Zarya and Sombra. I think they'll be two in the future. We'll take another look at, probably over nerfed in some regards, and then coming out of that, I think obviously the narrative shifted to Sojourn. Right, we saw Sojourn at the Overwatch League, finals dominating, and I think in these patch notes there are some Sojourn changes, and I wish we had been able to come in there and make some changes even sooner to Sojourn, but I'm glad we're making them today.
Yeah, no, I can't remember a hero that was so like divisive between people where like Sojourn is like if she's either I get 1,000 Sojourns in my game and they do nothing, or every Sojourn I run into just one shots everybody. Uh, it's just a wild different kind of gameplay experience, I think, from person to person. Uh, let's talk a little bit about season two. So we can dive into like the whole patch notes. But I think off the top, Ramatra, like, how do you see his role kind of fitting in with the rest of the lineup?
He has that poke style and is able to get in close as well. So, at times he might be playing far away with his primary fire, sometimes using the barrier, but also you can use that barrier when you're a little close and then go into Nemesis form, weave in between that, and dish out some damage. So, in terms of Ramatra, he's really this change of pace tank, and his ultimate is one of his biggest tools. If you're able to capitalize on that, it doesn't end until people are outside of your duration. So if your team's able to combine perhaps Lucio and some other heroes to get in there and not let that end, it can dish out a lot of damage.
Oh, dude, I mean, I was playing in some of the tests, and Ramatra's ultimate, I think, in overtime is going to be just so nasty. Uh, People have to get on. I think in game modes where people have to get on the objective, I think he's going to be like control and push in modes like that. That ultimate's going to be uh, crazy good. I don't think people are ready. I was joking. Like a lot of the clips that are going to come out of today of just like people 1v5ing with Ramatra ult is going to be funny.
Yeah, you got to get out of that space, and if he is speed boosted or something like that, it's even harder to get away from him. So save some of your cooldowns for when Ramatra pops Annihilation.
Yep, please run away. That's what I would say to my teammates. Um, so we can jump into it. So the damage roll passive is going to change with this patch. So it no longer provides the movement speed bonus, but it gets a little bit of a buff to reload speed. So an extra 10% for 35%. Why the change?
Yeah, I think with the movement speed, and initially some of the things we like to do is movement speed helps sell.
Yeah.
It sells that a change happens, right, on your 1P perspective. So, but what happened was, part of it was snowballing a little bit. I think early on we saw that with Genji, but also it was making it hard to aim on some heroes too. You'd be, maybe you're AD spamming or something along those lines, and you're going back and forth, and then all of a sudden you're getting out of your rhythm because you got a kill. So we want to exit for a few reasons, and then upping the reload speed so it's a little bit more impactful, a little bit more noticeable when that does occur.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I think it definitely was like really, it kind of like threw people off, I think. Like when they would get the kill, like you get the speed. And I think it was good, like if you were just kind of pushing forward. But if you were in the middle of a battle as like a Cassidy against somebody and all of a sudden you started moving a little bit faster. It definitely threw you off. Where I think that reload speed's going to help a ton of different heroes. I think Ash mostly, like off the top of my head.
Yeah, 35% is quite significant. So we'll see how heroes like Ash are able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, so another hero, well, I mean, that was just kind of all the damage heroes, so that is a lot of heroes. One that's getting a good amount of changes here is Doomfist. So I can read them off for everybody kind of, listening, and then we can talk a little bit about it. So Rocket Punch, the impact damage range is increased from 15 to 30 to 25 to 50 damage. Wall Slam damage range reduced 20 to 40 to 10 to 30. The empowered punch wall slam stun duration is reduced. Uh, Empowered punch knockback radius reduced from 4 to 3 meters. Minimum time before cancel option becomes available, reduced from 0.25 to 0.12. And then the cooldown gets reduced to 4 to 3. So I think before we go into some of the other changes with Doomfist, why all the changes around the rocket punch? Is this kind of like what you guys want to build the kit around?
Well, we're shifting some of the power that's
Yeah.
coming from your punch. I think the first thing to look at there is the wall damage going into the impact damage instead. This will enable Doomfist to take more fights in different places, right? A lot of times you really want to be in those smaller spaces, but he's going to be able to take more fights just overall. And then empowered punch, we're reducing the radius, but we're making it the uptime. We're giving you a lot more opportunities with it. You'll see some of that in the power block. You'll see some of that in the ult as well. So there's a little tweaking there to not make it as powerful because you're going to have more of them. But then also the non-empowered punch now stuns for minimum 0.25 seconds on wall stun too. That one makes that quite strong actually as well. The cooldown was something that was changed earlier, but wasn't fully noted in the patch notes since he got his rework. So I just wanted to make sure that that was surfaced as well here.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Then to kind of delve into some of the other changes. So power block, it goes from 8 seconds to 7. The duration also gets a half a second increase, so from 2 to 2.5. And then the minimum damage to get an empowered punch gets lowered. And then Meteor Strike now grants an empowered punch on landing, and then also has an increased slow from 2 to 3 seconds. And then Doomfist passive, I think sometimes people forget, about the passive because it's so impactful. The maximum temporary health increase from 150 to 200. Then the temp health gain per target hit with abilities goes from 30 to 40. So really a lot of good help for Doomfist mains out there today.
Yeah, when we're looking at, what it means to have a balance patch for a season start, there's a few heroes that are going to receive significant attention. I think this time Doomfist is sort of at the top of that list in terms of he's receiving a lot of buffs. You could say these are definitely aggressive changes. He's getting tankier, he's getting deadlier, and he's going to have more empowered punches, and we're shifting some of his playstyle a little bit to where he's taking fights. But yeah, Doomfist is receiving quite a lot of buffs. I think things like Power Block and Meteor Strike weren't feeling as good. Meteor Strike a lot of times felt like one of the ults in the game that just wasn't receiving a lot of value.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure it was a little bit better coming out of it as well.
Yeah, at times Meteor Strike just felt like instead of using it as something for high impact, you would use it to just get away, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Where like that doesn't really feel that great that you kind of like build up this ultimate just to basically leave. Uh, where speaking of some people who got to try it out a little bit, they really loved how like fluid Doom plays now. I think a lot of people are going to be playing Doomfist on the ladder today. Junker Queen as well. So some changes with Junker Queen. Her torso and her head hit volume size was increased by 12%. Yeah, that's great. Like she seems so slippery, hard to hit. Commanding Shout, the cooldown's reduced from 15 to 14 seconds. And then Adrenaline, that's her passive. So the healing multipliers increase from 1 to 1.25 damage dealt by wounds. Is this like an attempt to make her a little bit more self-survivable?
Yeah, both of those. I think Adrenaline Passive is one of the bigger buffs she's receiving today. Going from 1 to 1.25 with the damage dealt by wounds. We want all of her sustain to be on herself, though. I think what we saw early on with Drunker Queen when she was introduced was she could keep the whole team alive. That
Yeah.
commanding shout. But we really wanted to be focused on making her a bit tankier here. There's also the rampage. There's some changes there. The cost is going up by 10%, and the wound duration is reducing from 5 to 4 seconds there. So some slight changes there too, but we do want to focus her on Junker Queen in terms of making her a bit better here. Hasn't been performing well since the nerf. She's hit a little bit too hard back when she was introduced. And then her self-sustain here should be better. So we want to make sure Junker Queen can get played again across most ranks in terms of being a competitive tank.
Yeah, I really love that. I think one of the things that Junker Queen is a hero, like one of the more, I mean, really the most interesting thing about her is like the ability to like kind of like self heal and get all these like bleeds out and start like getting that rolling and really feeling that health. And sometimes I don't think you really kind of felt that impact that much. Where I think like the
Mm-hmm.
1.25 is going to be really impactful for Queen, where she should be able to like brawl a bit more. Compositions that don't have like as much like healing output, you could still play her in, right? So I think this will be pretty sick for Junker Queen players.
Yeah, should be exciting.
That's it for the tanks. And then obviously Ramatra comes in, so a lot just kind of going on with tanks overall, with getting a new hero, a lot of changes to Doom, changes to Queen. Uh, we already talked about the damage roll passive. First hero up for damage is my boy Bastion. So some changes with Bastion's ultimate. So the delay before projectiles drop was reduced from 1 second to zero point 0.6 seconds. The explosive damage is reduced from 300 to 250. No longer deals damage to himself with the ultimate. And then the minimum delay between placing the shots is reduced by 20%. And then reconfigure, the cooldowns reduced from 12 to 10 seconds. Was this a change to just kind of like make his ultimate a little bit more impactful and give him a little bit more damage output more often, I guess, with reconfigure?
I think this is something that's actually reflected by the bug that we had with Bastion.
Yeah.
Even when people were spamming the ultimate, you could still avoid it. So it was like, okay, well, if you can dish out 20 of these and the teams are still avoiding them, well, something is at its core wrong here in terms of how much time players are having. So we're cutting that almost in half. It's going from 1 second to point 0.6 seconds. So that's a pretty big change there. You can place the shots a little bit faster too, and not damaging yourself is just a little bit of a nice thing to have there. So we're really looking at Bastion. Ult was not really doing a lot overall in terms of his power and his what his kit was capable of. So I want to make it something that you can use it more effectively, and then reconfigure the cooldown going down. We just want you to spend a little bit more time in the match overall within that mode, have a little bit more opportunities for some of those windows of power.
Yeah, he could be really strong. I think in comps that like don't have speed and won't have the mobility to get away from the artillery, like even if it doesn't kill, it still does like a good amount of damage.
Mm-hmm.
And then like the reconfigure, like he can just pump out so much tank damage, especially against heroes who don't have like shields or large HP pools. Could see Bastion rise up, I think, in my opinion.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see how Bastion does
Uh,
here. But I think just making this kit overall feel better, with his rework and some of these changes, I think he'll just feel a bit more complete.
yeah, because since his rework, he's definitely probably not performing at the highest level, but he's definitely one of the more fun damage dealers to play. Uh, Sojourn. So before we talk about Sojourn, how is she doing at like the multiple levels? I know that like that's kind of what we discussed last time, is where she was like underperforming, I think, at lower levels, but like really good at higher levels. Like, how has that kind of played out over the last like month or so?
Yeah, those things stay true, right? So there's a lot of early indication that mate that she was performing very well at the highest levels and wasn't performing well at the lower levels, and that just stayed. So we didn't see a lot of rise in some of the non in the metal ranks of how Sojourns were performing. She still stayed pretty low overall. But once you transition into some of the highest ranks, that's where she takes off. Like top 500, she was performing very very well. So we wanted to make a change. We've been wanting to make a change for a while. So there's a few here if you want to run down them.
Yeah, yeah, I'll run them down here. So with the railgun, so the energy delay before draining gets reduced from 8 to 5 seconds. The secondary fire damage fall off starting range is reduced from 70 to 40 meters. Secondary fire crit damage multiplier reduced from 2 to 1.5. Secondary fire damage now scales linearly with energy from 30 to 130 damage, so 1 energy converts to 1 damage added. Primary fire damage projectile damage is increased from 9 to 10, and then overclock energy change rate increased by 20%. So these changes, are they just aimed at limiting like one shot capabilities? Like, is that kind of what we're aiming for here?
Yeah, I think the biggest one there to cause the crit multiplier. Reducing that from 2 to 1.5. That makes certain all those breakpoints. You can't just one shot someone from out of nowhere, and that's what Shojin was feeling like, right? So
Yeah.
you are still gonna have to deal some damage before that. And then you will be able to hit a nice shot that's going to deal a good amount of damage, but at the same time, it's not going to be out of nowhere and holding that secondary fire charge. Two, with the energy delay going down a little bit, we saw a lot of it where you would just hold the charge almost the entire time you were alive at some of the highest levels.
Yeah.
So we want to reduce that a little bit too, and then the fall off in terms of like where she has to position herself, how close does she have to be to get the best out of her kid? So, and she needs to be a little bit closer now. Sojourn's staying in the back, picking people off from afar. We want her kit to still enable, some of that charging up your primary, dishing out with your secondary, but it was just a bit too sharp in what it could do. And she's a character that has mobility. She's not like a Widowmaker where you do have a lot to give
Yeah.
up for that one shot capability. Sojourn had a lot of other things going for her too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that would be like the argument some people would make. Like, I completely agree. I think some people would probably make the argument like, well, Widowmaker can one shot, so what about her one shot capabilities? But I think, like you mentioned, like Sojourn on top of the one shot capabilities also had like, you know, insane mobility, uh, like to be able to ramp up and get those one shots on the fly. So I think it makes tons of sense.
Yeah, we'll see where she ends up. So hopefully back within the mix of the other damage
Yeah.
heroes.
So Symmetra gets some changes. I know there's like a large Symmetra community has been looking forward to some changes with Sim here in Overwatch 2, and it's got to work around her primary weapon. So the beam charge rate and decay rate is increased by 20%. Primary fire ammo consumption rate increased by from 7 to 10 per second, but the primary fire gains ammo from damaging barriers again. Um, is this just trying to like force her to be a little bit more active, like a no, you wouldn't really say like frontlining because she's still a bit squishy, but like more close range in the mix.
Yeah, definitely a bit more active, but also rewarding you when you are in the mix a bit faster, right? So if you are putting yourself in some of those positions that can be quite dangerous for you, and you're using your primary fire, you're gonna gain that charge faster, right? So
Yeah,
as long as you're hitting something, it's gonna go faster by 20%. If you're not, it will decay faster though as well. So some of that also we think when we're looking at heroes, we want them to have in your mind, if you're thinking about switching based on the enemy's composition, there should be a few heroes you think about. And I think with the barrier change, taking away her gaining ammo, she became less interesting as a potential swap in some of those situations. So we wanted to put that back in, and make sure that when you're considering that option, she could be one of those heroes.
yeah,
And then
the
finally, Symmetra is interesting because historically, and this is still true, she has a low pick rate, even though she does perform well across
yeah.
most ranks. So I think a lot of times we want to give her some changes, some buffs to hopefully re-enter some people into her kit.
Well, you think about like the ability to teleport multiple players in turrets that's slow. Like all of her kit is very strong, right? The wall that she provides with the ultimate is crazy too. Where it's just kind of like the primary fire and secondary was really probably the things like holding her back. Where I'm really interested to see, now that Ramatra comes in and he's got a shield, right? Some of the other shield tanks in the game, how her and Bastion work, as like shield busting and damage dealers that could take advantage of having shields on the other side. Could be quite strong.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Uh, So Tracer gets a really small like change here. The damage was increased from 5 to 6. Is this something that just kind of like came up with? I believe there was a bug in the previous patch.
Yeah, so there was a bug with the fall off not working correctly. So we're giving her back some of her damage that she lost, even with this bug that's been in for quite some time. She was performing fairly average across most ranks, across the high ranks, etc. So we're gonna give her back some of the damage now that the bug's fixed and see how she performs there.
Yeah, I know. Always a fan favorite. Have Tracer in the mix in terms of DPS. Well, that is actually it for all the damage changes. We can move right on to support. So we'll start things off with Ana and Mercy, and then like a longer combo about Kariko because she gets some changes here. So Ana, the sleep dart goes from 15 seconds to 14 seconds, and then for Mercy, the weapon swap times reduced from half a second to 0.35, and then she gets more ammo, so she gets 5 more shots, 20 to 25. Um, this seems to me a little bit more like quality of life for these two heroes.
Yeah, I think for Ana, it's a small buff. I think one thing you're going into 5v5 with Sleep Dart and how scary it can be and how good it can be. I think we did bump it up. So over time, we're seeing she needs a little bit more ability to combat for herself sometimes, and also Sleep Dart's impact. Maybe we judged it a little bit too high, even if it is very high still. Maybe 15 seconds is just too much there. But for Mercy, this is more of a quality of life thing. She'll find herself in some of these situations a bit more frequent where she is off by herself somehow in 5v5, right? So this just makes you feel a little bit better if you do have to go on the offensive there and try to fight for your life. Mercy's interesting though because I think they're contrary to like what most people may believe. After we put in some of her movement capabilities in Overwatch 2, she's actually one of the heroes that as skill ranks increase, so does her win rate.
Oh,
I think as players get better and better with Mercy, she's not this basic hero that people may have thought she was once was. But yeah, I think all the way up until if you're looking at the highest ranks, she's up there with Lucio and Kariko. Kariko doesn't overtake her until top 500.
oh
So
wow.
yeah, Mercy, what people may think, she may be struggling in some respects, is actually doing really well.
And I think that'll be really welcome for both of those characters and the people who play them because yeah, just a little bit more ability to defend for themselves. I know that's like my when I play Mercy, I always wish like I could be a little bit more offensive at times. Obviously contributing to damage through the amp, but being able to defend yourself, I think, is really good for players, especially for Ana and Mercy. So you did mention Kariko, so Kariko does get some changes. I'll run them off here, and then we can talk a little bit about them. So the arm hit volumes width reduced 15%. Added an option to auto wall climb. That's kind of cool. Kitsune Rush, the ultimate cost is increased by 10%. Movement speed bonus reduced from 50 to 30%. And then the cooldown rate reduced from 3 to 2 times faster. Protects Suzu. The cast times reduced from 0.15 to zero point 0.1 seconds. The kunai gets a little bit of an ammo buff, so 12 to 15. And then the swift step. The ability input can now be held to activate. Were you guys just seeing Kariko do a little bit too much at the highest? Well, really, just kind of probably across all levels.
Yeah, I think if you look at her ultimate, it was honestly it was very good, but also it was just something that became kind of indecipherable. It's kind of unreadable at times, right?
Yeah,
So you're looking at it, and if you're watching if you're watching at the highest levels, it's like, well, what's going on? This is crazy. But I think a lot of that was just too much. Whether it be the movement speed, whether it be the cooldown rate. So we're reducing those to bring her ults more in line, but also uh, we want to push her slightly away from just her loop being just about healing and just about getting the ult in some places. So she's getting a little bit more ammo for kunai. Hopefully you can take advantage of that as well. I don't have to reload as much. So I think Kariko's story overall so far has been, you know, across the board quite balanced, but finding a lot of value in the top levels of play, especially from that ultimate.
Yeah, no, I think she was super impactful at the highest level, especially like in Owl in like the playoffs. Like I was even a little bit skeptical about going in, like, oh well, is she going to be playing or whatnot? But I think yeah, like you mentioned, the ultimate just proves to be really impactful. I think now like putting her in a spot where with a little bit more ammo, like can be kind of a flanky offensive nature at times, and not just kind of healing building up towards that ultimate could definitely change like her play style and even the compositions that she's played in now, right?
Yeah, I think it's a small step, in that direction perhaps, but we'll see. But we do want to make her play slightly more varied down the line, and not just be about heal, heal, heal until ultimate, right?
Yep. Heal, 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 Kasune rush, everybody run and kill
Hmm.
it. Um, so that's some of the bigger changes with season two. Is there anything that I missed that you would want to talk about?
I mean, we hit all the changes, but I think overall, if we're looking at this, how we summarize this, there's some big buffs here. Doomfist, especially, some nerfs to the top, Sojourn and Kariko, and how they're performing at the highest ranks, and then Ramatra. I think the biggest change we can make to the game is adding a brand new hero. So Ramatra, I'm very excited to see what his impact is going to be in the first few weeks, and then finally, I think what you'll see during season two is hopefully if there's anything that is out of line, we will have the capability to be more reactive, faster. So we'll be keeping on everything over these next few weeks.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. Super stoked to be able to jump in for season two here shortly. Just a little bit longer here on the East Coast than be able to. But when can we expect to hear from you again? Maybe another one of these like towards around mid season, or what are we gonna when are we gonna get together again?
Yeah, we'll be doing these every month with every with every bounce patch. So once a month, unless there's some smaller ones in between. But we'll be doing those on that type of cadence. And then I think there's some other stuff heading to season, heading to the mid season in the new year. We want to target some other things, maybe some Reddit AMAs or things of that nature. And also right after this, I posted a thread on my Twitter, so if anyone has any questions about anything, drop your questions in now, and I'll start getting to those over the next like hour and a half. So yeah, should be fun.
Hell yeah! Everybody, go spam Alex Twitter with awesome questions. Thanks so much, man, for the time. I know the community really appreciates just hearing directly from you and the team, and just all the changes and the work you guys are putting in.
Yeah, thank you so much for the time, and I hope everyone enjoys season two. See you soon.
Yeah, sweet. Later, y'all. Enjoy
All right,
season two.
cheers. Bye bye.